If you haven't seen this latest bit of video from Kamala Harris yesterday, I want you to stop the video right now, go back and watch it, come back, because take my word for it, this is just a delectable piece of footage. And it's also, in a package of under 30 seconds, a wonderfully perfect illustration, not only of the abject absurdity of this stupid woman being the vice president, but also of the abject absurdity of leftist identitarianism itself. Here's how it began, and I will try to do the speaking cadence as accurately as possible, though I freely admit this is not one of my better impressions. Quote, "Good afternoon. My name is Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at a table wearing a blue suit. First of all, I need to point out that this introduction was deeply hurtful and offensive to indigenous Americans, as it did not include a land acknowledgement, shockingly. See, the whole point with lame comical introductions like this is that you're trying to toss a little morsel of red meat to every officially registered leftist identitarian victim group. So you do the pronoun thing so that the transgenders don't get mad. Then you do the I'm a woman thing so the feminists don't get mad. Then you do the weirdly detailed description of what you look like and what you're doing, presumably so blind people don't get mad. And don't ask how a person who was born blind is helped by you saying you are wearing a blue suit. Because we don't ask questions like that. But then you're supposed to do the land acknowledgement. It's very important, where you list every Indian tribe that ever inhabited the environs from which you are currently speaking, up until the day the white devil colonizers showed up to gleefully oppress and enslave everyone. So clearly Kamala Harris hates Native Americans, which is too bad. The other thing I need to call attention to in this video is the fact that the vice president, since we are back to partying like it's the spring of 2020, she was wearing a ridiculous obedience muscle on her face, which, it has to be said, seems pretty insulting to deaf people. Since you are giving an audio-only description, there is no sign language interpreter, not that I saw, and your mouth is obscured, thus unfairly denying hearing-impaired viewers of the opportunity to read your lips. And the next speaker after Kamala really made her look bad on this. You could tell she was thinking, all right, baby, watch me upstage the vice president right now. So the next lady does her whole little spiel. My name's such and such, I'm a woman, these are my pronouns, here's what my clothes look like. And then right at the end she goes, and I'm also wearing a mask on my face, which is transparent, so that viewers can see my mouth. Now, if we had been able to see Kamala in this moment, having just been made to look like a total asshole, I suspect we would have seen one of the only two facial expressions that she is capable of. One is smug self-satisfaction, the other is seething contempt, and I'm guessing it would not have been the first one. So I guess if this story has a moral, it's that if you're a hearing-impaired Native American, you should not be expecting a Kwanzaa card from Vice President Kamala Harris. But as long as we're going to be doing this fun new tradition of introducing ourselves with painstaking descriptions of all of our personal attributes, I feel like Kamala Harris should be more thorough in helping people get to know her. For example, she could toss in a few more fun factoids about herself, like, I have 0 American ancestors, or I grew up mostly in Canada, or I have absolutely no useful skills of which to speak, or I started out as the slutty mistress of a 90s daytime talk show host and I failed upward all the way to vice president. But I think it's the tone of her voice that I love the most about this video, in which there are so very many things to love, because she managed to sound even more snide and disinterested than she normally does about everything, which is saying a lot, and as if she's thinking, this is so fucking stupid, I cannot believe I am being forced to do this, which, granted, seems to be her attitude toward most things, and especially going anywhere near the border in her official capacity as border czar. Border czarina? I don't want to misgender anybody. But she seemed especially annoyed at having to do one of these new-styled introductions wherein you shamelessly pander to as many identity groups as possible while you're in the process of introducing yourself. And I suppose I would be remiss in not stating that yes, Castle Curmudgeon is built on the traditional ancestral lands of the Luiseno, the Cahuilla, and the Kumeyaay peoples who were all living in perfect harmony with one another never encroaching on the other's territory, never fighting long, brutal, bloody wars of extermination and ethnic cleansing against one another. They were all just sitting politely in their little teepees, smoking their peace pipes, making shawls and bead bracelets to sell to passing tourists. Right up until the day those goddamn Spaniard missionaries showed up and ruined everything with their civilization and their Christianity. Those bastards. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where being called toxically masculine is a lovely compliment rather than a scathing epithet. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I am your eponymous host and humble servant. And it occurs to me that I have just done an entire opening segment talking about a Kamala Harris introduction, but I didn't close it by doing her actual, real, proper ringside introduction, which I don't think I've done in probably several months now. And I'm not entirely sure I remember the whole thing, but let's just go ahead and wing it, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, fighting out of the blue corner from the mean streets of Berkeley, California, by way of Montreal, Quebec, Canada, put your hands together for the Ugandan headhunter, the California cackler, the Paul Newman of word salad. She ain't Jack or Bobby, but she is Jamaican Punjabi. From Maine to Montana to South Carolina, she's the only VP who's got a vagina. Let's give it up for an artist known and admired the world over, making a one-night-only return in her former gimmick as Black Masked Grim Reaper Ninja Lady. Please welcome Kamala Harris. I don't know about you all, but I feel better having gotten that out of the way. It would have been like stifling a sneeze if I didn't do it. So, what else do we have today? Oh, there's the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. The man every idiot celebrity Twitter tweeter has a framed portrait of on their wall, possibly their ceiling. But let me tell you something about Vladimir Zelensky. This is a serious man, a war leader, a man fighting to liberate his people from subjugation and return them to breathing the sweet, sweet air of Western-style liberal democracy. A man who will remain ever laser-focused on victory at all costs until the day the last vodka-swilling Russian invader bastard either retreats over the border or dies choking in his own blood. So imagine a man with that much stuff on his plate, the sword of Damocles hanging over his country every moment of every day, still finding time for a Vogue cover shoot with Annie Leibovitz. And man, setting aside the matter of just how bad this makes him look, you really need to see this picture, because I want to know if I am the only one who instantly said, oh my god, it's exactly like that awful Harry and Meghan picture. So she's sitting in front of him. She is the central focus of the photograph. Her hair is all puffed out. They're making her take up just as much of the frame as possible. She's looking directly, resolutely at the camera lens, as if to say, I will personally choke Vladimir Putin to death with his own small intestine, goddammit. The president, meanwhile, the junior partner in the marriage, obviously, is sort of draped around her from behind, clutching onto her shoulder as if seeking solace or reassurance, a faint look of terror in his eyes, as if he's saying, Mommy, please don't let the bad man get me. You know that little video snippet that a lot of YouTubers use? The one that is just Vladimir Putin busting up laughing? I guarantee you Vladimir Putin did that exact same thing when he saw this stupid picture. And if you're the average Ukrainian man on the street, the one who is actually dealing with all the war and privation, do you think that guy's morale is affected negatively or positively when he sees his commander-in-chief posing for fucking John and Yoko snaps on the cover of a goddamn fashion magazine? And that is the other place my mind went, right after Harry and Meghan. What was to the most famous, most ridiculous, most overrated picture that Annie Leibovitz ever took, possibly the most overrated photograph of all time. The one where a naked John Lennon is in the fetal position, curled up around Yoko, looking like he's trying to crawl into her womb through her armpit. It's a famous picture because he happened to get murdered about six hours after it was taken. Otherwise, it's just a weird, creepy artifact of the power of cocaine. But in all three of these Annie Leibovitz pictures, because I'm almost positive that the Harry and Meghan one was her too, you've got the exact same compositional theme. You've got the wife assuming the dominant position. The husband is reduced to being either a helpless infant, or a simpering child. And the message, artistically, is one that seems to say, everything that this man has, everything he is, he owes to this woman. She is the one with all the competence, all the dignity, all the grace, all the courage, and he's just sort of a parasite, a carbuncle, an accessory, a guy who should be grateful that his old lady allows him to store his testicles in her handbag. And not to belabor the point, but what the hell could Zelensky possibly be thinking when he agrees to do a photo shoot like this, and agrees to have this picture appear on the cover, not of Time or Newsweek or U.S. News and World Report, but Vogue, a fashion magazine for wealthy liberals and effete homosexuals. But I repeat myself. And why stop there? Why not have yourself photographed in a pink tutu and a feather boa waving a gay pride flag? It would just be a slightly less subtle version of the same message, after all, wouldn't it? When you agreed to this photo shoot and this cover story, there is only one message that sends. That is you saying, I care more about how American celebrities view me than I do about how the people of my own country do. The people who are literally fighting and dying in the trenches. The people who look to me for strength and leadership and resolve in the face of foreign aggression. And I honestly had no idea this guy was that dumb. And that is a hell of a damn shame, I think. And speaking of things that are a damn shame, it's a damn shame Donald Trump waited so long to start suing the fake news media, but I'm happy to report this situation has been rectified starting today. He has officially filed suit against CNN, and word has it that the rest of the usual suspects are also going to get sued, at least insofar as the cable news sector goes, but I sure hope he doesn't limit it to that. I hope he goes after WAPO and the New York Times, too, who probably have slandered him even more brazenly and unfairly than CNN and MSNBC have. And let me tell you right now, one more big judgment against CNN is going to leave them teetering on the brink of oblivion. They already paying out an 8-figure judgment to Nick Sandmann, the high school kid from Covington, Kentucky, whom they gleefully slandered as a white supremacist because he stood with his hands in his pockets and didn't say anything while some toothless maniac banged a drum up in his face. And then they spent something on the order of several $100 million on the launch of CNN Plus. And if you already don't remember CNN Plus, don't feel bad because nobody else does either. Although I don't think that's entirely fair, really. I think CNN Plus should occupy some weird little niche in the collective cultural memory, like Beanie Babies or the Pet Rock or New Coke, if only because it was the most unmitigated train wreck dumpster fire in the entire history of cable television. $300 million for 3 weeks of content. That is a pretty heavy butcher's bill. I guess one might also say CNN Plus will go down as the most expensive punchline in the history of comedy, but we will take it. The point being, between the Nick Sandmann judgment and the disaster of CNN Plus, depending on what the exact sums are, you're looking potentially at something close to $500 million in sunk cost. And that's without even taking into consideration the fact that CNN's reputation as a news organization is in tatters, and their ratings reflect that reality. They are pulling barely 500,000 viewers for their primetime lineup. And we all know the joke by now, because it's true that most of those viewers are empty bus stations and airport terminals. Except it's not a joke. It is extremely funny, though. Because that's the actual reality. Whatever they are able to pull in the ratings, they pay cash money for a significant share of that by having contracts with local and state transportation authorities where they agree to tune their televisions to your channel. In other words, if 500 TVs at the Chicago airport are all showing CNN because CNN paid the city of Chicago to do that, the Nielsen ratings see that as 500 distinct legitimate households that are watching CNN because they obviously want to be watching CNN so badly. Now multiply that by every airport and 2-bit bus station in the entire country, and you tell me how much of CNN's ratings come from people actually watching CNN. The reason I wish Trump would have sued them sooner is because if you filed this thing a year ago today instead of today, you could potentially have had a judgment in hand and the utter ruination of CNN complete in plenty of time for the 2024 election campaign. And CNN can't slander you nearly as effectively when there is no longer any CNN. But the way it is now, the case probably doesn't get resolved until after the next election, which means CNN will cover Trump exactly the same way they did in 2016 and 2020 and all throughout his presidency. But having said all that, it is still a tricky business getting a judgment against a cable news channel. And we shouldn't view the success of the Nick Sandmann suit as a guarantee that the Trump suit will achieve a similar result, even though if there is any such thing as justice, it quite obviously should. Because there is still a non-level playing field in television news in terms of what the FCC regulations allow you to get away with. And it's another example of a thing that congressional Republicans have known for a very, very long time is a serious problem for their side, but they've done next to nothing in actually pursuing a legislative remedy for it. On broadcast news, meaning the big three networks, though we all know there is no shortage of left-wing bias, the law requires you to at least make a show of some sort of pretense of objectivity, which is why when you watch the CBS, NBC, ABC evening news, you don't hear anything nearly as unhinged batshit crazy as what you hear on CNN and MSNBC in those same time slots, because Joy Reid and Nicole Wallace and Don Lemon don't have to operate under the same constraints that the network news anchors do. And so the lack of a consistent standard has resulted in the cable news channels all but abandoning any form of traditional news reporting and going to a model that is 100% opinion content all the time, where all day, every day, it's just a succession of commentators and analysts, though I use the term loosely, who are all trying to out-crazy the person who talked before them. But if Trump does wind up getting a 9-figure judgment against CNN, that's going to all but ruin CNN as a presence on the international stage. I have stated before my belief that the CNN brand is already beyond rehabilitation. And frankly, their new CEO seems to share this belief because he hasn't done much at all to change the culture around that place. I mean, yeah, he fired Chris Cuomo's goofy ass, but only because that guy's behavior was so obviously screamingly unethical that there really was no other option. Humpty Dumpty Stelter has still got his dumbass show on Sunday. The guy who jacks off in front of his coworkers is still sitting pretty. Don Lemon doesn't seem worried about his job security. So maybe the new CEO just figures, gonna collect my paycheck until this thing inevitably collapses, and then I'm gonna walk away with a whole shitload of money. Which, that does seem like the sensible way to play things. I mean, what alternative does he have? Actually trying to turn CNN into a credible news organization? Can you imagine how much work that would be? You know, I've been giving this Annie Leibovitz thing quite a bit of thought, and does anybody know how much she charges per hour? Because I think I need to do a radical rebranding of the channel. In the spirit of Harry and Meghan, John and Yoko, Vladimir and Olena, I need a picture of Lady Curmudgeon in a full Superman pose, hands on hips, wind machine in her face, looking confident and heroic, while I cower back in the background, peeping over her shoulder, clutching the hem of her cape, quivering like a little frightened bitch, hoping against hope that mommy can save me from the danger. And now that I think I'm starting to understand the true meaning of masculinity, I think we will call it an evening. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Have a pleasant tomorrow and an edifying day after. See you Friday. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.